Welcome friends of WildRift to another RiftGuides WildRift video, and for today we are going to bring back a format that everyone loves. It's the OP builds, and this time around we bring you 5 OP builds that are just amazing. But before we jump right into them, we get to our question of the day. What are your goals for the season in both ranked and legendary queue? Let me know in the comments below. Our first champion on this list is Lucian, and here we have the most powerful, the most annoying AD carry of this patch that needs to be nerfed, and plot twist, will be nerfed very soon. So for runes we want to run Kraken, Vampirism, Nullifying Orb and Hunter Genius. The reason for Kraken over Conqueror or anything else is simply because Conqueror got nerfed, the bonus damage got removed, and Kraken in a sense of laning power grants us the highest potency possible. With this, our trading in lane becomes obnoxiously powerful and we get a kill super easy. And we all know that it's all about kills in solo queue and legendary queue. But now let's talk about the items. Obviously we'll start with a longsword, into a Stormrazor, Infinity Edge, Charge Blade, Soldier's Grudge and a Bloodthirster. But here's the real catch. We want a Bloodthirster over a Guardian Angel because Bloodthirster allows us to stay in a fight so long. Not only that, it also grants us a nice shield which adds to our power. On top of that, we also gain 100% crit, which just makes life so much more bearable as an AD carry. We've all been there, we have like 75% crit and we don't crit 2 times in a row and then we lose. Terrible. With this will never happen again. There's something more you need to know. In the super late game when you're full build, you're going to sell your Stormrazor for Navori Quick Blades, because then you've reached a point where you can successfully weave in spells infinitely and indefinitely to then just constantly spam them, get more passive procs and just kill the enemy for free. Therefore the attack speed value drops a lot. At the same time, the charge blade value will increase because obviously you're spamming more spells, means more procs, means more damage. You'll love this build, so give it a shot. And for boots, you want defensive boots with either Protobelt enchant, the Quicksilver or the Stasis enchant. You need to look at the enemy team and then make your decision. You can't just cookie cut it. Next up comes another champion we need to talk about here. It's Orianna. With the changes to Conqueror, she also stops using it, and now we have A.L.I.S.O.N on her. For runes you can run A.L.I.S.O.N, Champion, Nullifying Orb and Genius, just as the typical cookie cutter runes because they're just the best. A.L.I.S.O.N grants us empowered laning phase and utility for our allies during fights. The shielding is not to be underestimated and the bonus damage during laning as well isn't to be underestimated, it's just very powerful. If you consider every single trade you make adding 10, 20, 30 to 50 damage later on, it becomes pretty much insane once you hit the Luden spike. Let's talk about items here. Contrary to public belief, you will start with the Mana Crystal, the Sapphire Crystal. Since you're a mage compared to an AD carry, the frequency in which you cast spells is relatively low early game, which means the AP value you have will not be too much of a difference maker. However, due to the Mana Crystal start, you will have infinite mana and the possibility to emulate the Mana Flow Band, while having Genius as well, which means you have more mana and ability haste as well, so you're not losing any of those. Plus, on the first objective, you will always have your Luden's Echo whatsoever unless you grief your farm. So you have the biggest power spike possible early game, plus the mana to play around for it, because this is some of the things that people struggle the most with, having mana at their first objective. This is your full build then. Mana Crystal start, Luden's Echo, Tear of the Goddess, Rabadon's Death Cap, Archangel Staff, Void Staff and Infinity Orb. And afterwards, Lucidity Boots with the Stasis enchant as per usual. Next on this list we have Ezreal, and for Ezreal we want the runes Conqueror, Vampirism, Nullifying Orb and Hunter Genius. For our starting item we want the Longsword. Never, I repeat, never start with the Sapphire Crystal unless you're playing against the Yuumi, because the Yuumi lane is something you will never ever possibly win and should never try to even contest, because it requires the Yuumi to run it down severely for you to have a chance at killing them. Therefore, just with the Sapphire Crystal start against the Yuumi lane, you will have a nice scaling advantage. Nonetheless, otherwise always Longsword. Here's something else you need to know about. Ezreal as a champion loves to have AD. Her raw AD is just so powerful in this champion thanks to the conversion into the power into his first ability. So your first item, as per usual, Mana Immune. Nothing else competes. Don't rush Trinity Force or something else, it's just bad. As your second item, you want to build Sheen, but here's the secret. You don't want to complete anything as of yet, you want to sit on the Sheen item. And then afterwards, you want to build, depending on the enemy type you're facing, a Cyril's Grudge or Blade, and then afterwards the one you didn't build yet. After that, you're going to build a Gunblade, and only after that, you're going to finish the Trinity Force, because it grants you the biggest power spike. And here's the secret about this. The Sheen as an item grants you 100% base damage bonus on spells cast with a Spellblade passive. With the way your champion works, this will increase your damage by a lot, without spending too much money. With this in mind, you don't want to complete the Trinity Force because the damage increase comparison to the cost increase is just too high to warrant it. Therefore, completing other items is just better. And here's another thing about the Gunblade. Hextech Gunblade offers you 15% physical and magical vamp, and Ezreal benefits from both. Another thing is that Ezreal loves to poke the enemy, especially with his ultimate ability as the game goes on. The moment we start those dances around objectives, his ultimate ability, hit the True Shot Barrage, will take away 50% of someone's life, and now if you add the Gunblade on top and if you're a squishy champion, it will be 70 to 80%. Therefore, if you hit one of those, you will guarantee the objective for your team because one of the enemy team cannot fight anymore, and it's just too easy to win with that. And for boots, you want the defensive boots with the stasis enchant, and then you're happy about life. Next up on the list comes Karma, and here we have the runes Airy, Champion, Nullifying Orb, and Hunted Genius. And here comes the itemization. As a Karma, I love to start with the Ruby Crystal, and this is mostly about the support build. With the Ruby Crystal and the Champion rune, your dominance in lane is guaranteed. You can just beat up the enemy on cooldown, because they cannot ever face you because they have to respect the possibility of you having skilled your second ability, which will root them in place and then allow you to auto-attack them more often with your allies alike. There's another thing we have to talk about. Even if you go support on Karma, you will always, and by always I mean always, rush Luden's Echo. The damage you provide with this item on your champion is just vastly superior to any supportive item you can think of. It just makes a difference at all times, because once you hit your first ability that's mantra empowered, you'll take away 30% of someone's life, and then how can they fight? You'll just turn the tide without even having the fight started yet, and then secure your team's objective, similar to the Ezreal ultimate thing. After your Luden's Echo, you can go for Nathine's Unholy Grail, Eleandri's Torment, and then make the choice between Staff of Flowing Water, Ardent, or Rabadon and Void Staff. It all depends on your gold income and your relative strength in the game. Here's the secret about Athene's Unholy Grail. When you support an ally and your ally kills an enemy champion, you will be granted full stacks whatsoever of the item, which means your next shield will heal an ally again. If you think about this consciously and observe how the fight is actually playing out, you will be able to heal your allies multiple times during a fight. The same applies to Janna in casting ultimate ability, which will heal her allies multiple times with the Athene's value while her allies are killing enemy champions and she gets assists. It's really broken and really powerful, and you should take a look at it because yeah, it's just unfair. Last but not least, we have Jax, and here you probably have the most choices possible. You can choose between a powerful laning rune, Grasp of the Undying, a decent scaling rune with the Conqueror, and a 1v9 rune with lethal tempo. You can choose between all three, and all three are somewhat viable. However, the next one, Triumph, is just a cookie cutter rune, and Ultimate Shield, Nullifying Orb, and Bone Plating mostly depend on matchup, and the last choice, a Genius between Demolish, depends if you are allowed to actually contest the enemy tower. But now for the build. You want to start with the Ruby Crystal and build it into a Divine Sundra. Afterwards you can build a Blade of the Rune King or a Wit's End, afterwards a Death's Dance, Starrick's Gauge, and a Guardian Angel. For boots, you obviously want defensive boots with most likely a teleport enchant, since you're going to rotate around the map, and otherwise you can go for the Gargoyle enchant. But sometimes you have to make up your mind when it comes to more defensive options. Sometimes items like Arandan's Omen or Force of Nature will be your go-to items rather than the offensive options, the Wit's End or the Guardian Angel, because you want the HP from the items and the relative tankiness to make sure that the HP you have will be more effective. And then your identity as a duelist and split pusher will become even stronger and more clear, and that makes the game so much easier. It also depends on your rune setup, because the more attack speed you have with, for example, lethal tempo, the more potent on-hit effects will become.